Hey, I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. This is Byron Tyler. It's always a pleasure to bring you these live feeds from my studio here at Bot Radio Network, AM 640 and FM 100.7 here in Memphis, Tennessee. We're in my office, and from time to time, we bring interviews that I do that we're preparing for the radio show. We bring you into it so you can kind of watch and see behind the scenes as we produce the radio programs. And I have opportunity to meet some wonderful people doing some great things for the kingdom of God. Today is no exception. I'm getting reacquainted with a longtime friend of mine. We actually went to Bible college together.
Long time ago, yes.
Dr. Floyd Paris. He wasn't a doctor back then, but he was working that way. But there's been a lot of water under the bridge since the last time we got together.
Amen.
Since those ping pong days back in the gymnasium.
Back in the gymnasium. That's right.
Yeah, that was back, you remember those ping pong? But you were pretty good at ping pong.
I was.
Yeah.
But Dr. Allman beat me.
He beat you, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is a treat for us to get together, and I'm looking forward to sharing Floyd and the work that he's doing with the ministry, and also is the senior pastor now of the Leawood Baptist Church here in Memphis, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So without any more, we're going to just dive in, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Well, it's time for this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. I'm Byron Tyler. Always great to get together with you, friend, and thank you so much for watching the programs that we put on Facebook and also YouTube, and our radio show that airs on AM 640 and FM 100.7. And I do appreciate so much those who follow and are encouraged by the programs, and mainly the wonderful guests that we have in the studio. It's always a pleasure for me to introduce to you various ones. And today I'm really excited because we're going to go back in time for me, back in the college days at Mid-South Bible College here in Memphis, Tennessee. And there was a student that we knew each other, Floyd Paris. I think Floyd, it was at Mid-South because we didn't know each other prior to that, did we?
No, it was at Mid-South. We saw a few things. We attended the same things, like revivals and things like that. I saw you around at other events, but really we got to know each other at Mid-South Bible College.
We were just talking to our YouTube family just a moment ago, back in the gymnasium, kind of the break time, away from all the theology and all the deep Bible, conversations of predestination and everything. We would hang out in the back of the gymnasium at a kind of a game room and play ping pong.
Yeah. And lots of ping pong.
Lots of ping pong. You were pretty good at smashing that ball.
I had my own time of practice there. It's I was in the library too.
Yeah, you did. You did some preparation and study time, but those were some good days. And I want to kind of just lay a foundation and unfold really the ministry that you've been involved with now for really since you left school. Because I know that you were preparing. That was ministry itself when you were preparing. Exactly, when you're preparing for to go to be a pastor, what you were doing there at Mid-South Bible College. And I know that when you left there, you were pastoring, I think, for a time in Kentucky. Is that right?
That's true. When I was in Mid-South Bible College, I was the youth minister at Leawood under Dr. Glisson. And I was there until I finished Mid-South, went to Mid-America, pastored in Mississippi, West Tennessee, at Mount Pleasant Baptist Church in Skull Bone, Tennessee.
You're real close to that mic there. There you go.
Okay, Mount Pleasant Baptist Church in Skull Bone, Tennessee. And from there, I went to Unity Baptist Church in Ashland, Kentucky. And I was there for 15 years. And that's where my kids graduated from high school and that kind of thing. And from there, we went to, I went to.
And we're going to stop right there, okay? Because that's kind of where I want to kind of jump into the conversation. Because as you mentioned, you were on staff at Leawood as a young man.
Yes.
And then your ministry took you to various churches in Mississippi. And did you say Arkansas?
I did not pastor in Arkansas, no. Okay. I preached there many times.
But you went to Kentucky.
I did go to Kentucky.
For 15 years.
For 15 years, yeah.
Was the decision to come back to Memphis, was that tough for you?
It wasn't really not really, because I'd gone to Africa for 5 years first. In Kentucky in 2009, the Lord saw fit to call my lovely, sweet wife home.
And that's an underlined statement right there, lovely and sweet wife, Penny. And I want to also bring her into our conversation because I know that she's really foundational in your life, has been foundational in your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Your love. And it was basically 10 years ago, I believe, last month on May 9th,
That's correct.
which was actually my dad's birthday, May 9th.
Mhm.
But Penny went to see Jesus.
She went to see Jesus. It was actually the Saturday before Mother's Day in 2009. I was in Memphis saying goodbye to my grandmother, who was 92 years old. I was the last grandson to make it in town before she passed away. But actually, Penny passed away 12 hours before my grandmother.
Oh, my.
So Penny passed away on Saturday before Mother's Day at 5:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And my grandmother passed away at 5:12 a.m. Central Standard Time.
Wow.
So we had Penny's, my grandmother's funeral on Tuesday, Penny's funeral in Ashland, Kentucky on Wednesday. And then we came to Memphis and had another funeral on Thursday. And then Penny's favorite uncle passed away on Monday, and his funeral was on Friday.
Wow.
So we had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday funerals.
Oh, Floyd, I mean, I just can't, I didn't know that, first of all. And I can't imagine what your family had been through during that time. I know we talked about going through storms, and I'm sure you found the grace and mercy and sufficiency, the faithfulness of Christ to be there.
Absolutely. I've told people before, I said, you won't understand it, but I honestly felt the prayers, physically felt the prayers of people carrying my family during that time.
You know, there's something about, the Bible talks about the peace that surpasses all understanding.
Absolutely.
And, sometimes we would like to have, control of that peace when we wanted it, when we were going through times. But God, I think, gives it to us when he knows we really need it the most.
And he does. I've never been angry with the Lord. I set my kids down and I said, listen, God didn't do this to us. God did this because he loved your mother.
Yeah.
And my wife had suffered with MS, and she died of a massive heart attack. And because she had MS, it kind of masked the symptoms of a heart attack. She also had high blood pressure, by the way, so take your medicine. And it just kind of caught everybody off guard. I mean, nobody expected it. She was 46 years old.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was any kind of precursor signs or anything of her health. I mean, you mentioned MS. I didn't even know she had MS.
Yeah, she had MS, and we found that out while we were living in Ashland, Kentucky. And so I told my kids, I said, the Lord has never done anything to harm us. So we can't look at this as though he has done something against us. He hasn't. He's simply answered her prayer over our prayer. And her prayer was two things. She never wanted to be a burden to the family, and she never wanted to be where she couldn't be able to do for the family.
For the family. Well,
and you knew Penny. I mean, it's just the way she was.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, the just Miss Bubbles, basically. I mean,
oh, absolutely.
The gift of encouragement, totally. I mean, and I first met Penny back in first grade at Kingsbury Elementary School, and I think I'm trying to remember, we went through school together through. Was it? I think she graduated. Did she graduate from Kingsbury? I was trying to think.
She transferred to Briarcrest.
Yeah,
somewhere.
But she went up through. I can't remember how far, but for a good number of years,
right?
We were
but she lived in the same house.
Yeah. Okay. We were in the same neighborhood and things. So, and I remember because when you're in first grade and you're sick, and the teacher would get all the kids. Well, we got to make get well cards for whoever was sick. And I remember students giving. I remember hers being bright and cheerful and
always.
Now you both went to Leawood.
We both went to Leawood.
So you kind of grew up together.
We did. As a matter of fact, she had a crush on Tim Parrish, and he was a pitcher on the Leawood baseball team. I was the catcher, and
I remember Tim Parrish.
Right?
Yeah.
So she used to come and watch him pitch. And she was actually sitting closer to me, but I was catching. She saw my back. She didn't have the mask on. So, but we laugh about, she was really coming on her big blue bike to see me.
Yeah. And she just dropped the H, right?
Yeah.
Paris for the Paris.
That's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. That was worked out perfect.
Perfect. See.
Now, how soon did the transition take place when you actually resigned from the position in Kentucky. How long after her passing did that take place?
It was actually about 4 years. It was kind of funny.
And how old were the kids? Now, you mentioned you've got a son and a daughter. You've got Philip and Julie.
Mm-hmm.
And so how old were the kids at that time?
Well, and I know it sounds like a Greek tragedy, okay? But when Penny passed away, that funeral on Wednesday was on Julie's 17th birthday.
Oh my.
And she's my baby. And Philip is 4 years older. So Julie had just turned 17 and Philip was going to turn 21 in February. So that's how old they were. Philip was already in the university. He had just transferred from University of the Cumberlands to University of Kentucky and hadn't started University of Kentucky yet. And Julie was about to go into her senior year in high school. So that's, how old they were. And suddenly I have a teenage daughter starting her senior year and asking me those questions about prom dresses. And, I'd relegated all that to Penny. So I had to take a crash course real quick and, figure out a way to do that without embarrassing her and embarrassing me. And so Penny had some wonderful friends that took her prom dress shopping. And I said, you just take a picture of it and send it to me and I'll give you my yes or no. Anyway, but
you got through that time.
Yeah. And, the Lord's grace just did that. I've never known my children. Of course, hurt, yes. Do we miss Penny? Yes. Have there been those down times? Yes. But we've never seen that anger in them. And that's just the grace of the Lord, because a lot of people, get angry with the Lord.
Now, Floyd, when we were catching up on the phone last week, you were telling me about the various nations that you've been to. You preached in over 40, I believe, 45, yeah. I think you said, different countries.
Yeah, about 48.
That you've traveled to and preached. And the ministry we want to kind of unfold now, which you're involved with, this was non-existent prior to Penny's passing, right?
That is correct.
But you traveled. You took your children. You took Julie and Philip back to Africa. And why did you take them to Africa?
Well, I've been to a lot of different countries at that time, but the only mission trip that Penny ever went with me on was to Africa. So after she died, we had been given a sum of money in her memory. So I told the kids, I said, why don't we go back to Uganda? It's the only country that Penny ever went with me on a mission trip. Let's go back to Uganda and let me have your input on how you think we ought to spend the money. So in the summer of 2010, we went back and I took them all over Uganda. I've been going to Uganda for probably at that time, 15 years. And we'd gone east, west, south. And one of the men who worked for me, his name is Gabriel Uzira, who is a 4-time Olympic champ from Uganda, 3-time African champ.
What kind of in what area?
In hammer toss and discus.
Okay.
So he's kind of a big man. And he said to me, nobody goes up north. I said, well, Gabriel, up north is where we have Coney. Coney is that crazy man going around, attacking villages and killing people. And he said, but nobody ever goes to my place. And I said, well, if you can guarantee our safety, we'll go. He goes, it will be fine. I said, okay. So we went up north and we're touring around the north and we go to the hospital and literally there are children dying from malnutrition, from malaria, from just a stomach virus, just normal diarrhea. They die. And my daughter looks at me and says, Dad, can't we do something? And I said, well, yeah, I can buy some medicine and we'll make it available here at the hospital. So they won't have to pay for medicine. And they have socialized medicine over there.
Right.
And the Madi people are the smallest tribe in the most remote area. When I say most remote, at that time, there was no electricity in Moyo except the generator that ran 2 hours a night. Okay. So we decided to do that and start putting medicine there. they were averaging at that time about 7 children dying a week. That's one a day. My son, who was older, said to me, well, Dad, if they don't learn to read or write English, which is the national educated language, then they don't have any hope of getting out of the village. Can we maybe start a school? And I said, well, Lord can do anything. Let me,
Yeah.
let me see. So we went to a church service that weekend, that Sunday. And the way they say, praise the Lord in Māori is Achua a penny.
I tell you, say it one more time now.
Achua a
a
penny.
penny.
And my wife's name was Penny.
Yeah.
So we just kind of looked at each other and said, this is the place. Nobody's going to West Nile. No one's going to that side of the Nile River.
And what talk about the conditions there? I mean, you talked about the tragedy, the health, and the people being so sick with cholera and other health issues that you're talking about here. But what is the political environment? What is the religious environment?
Well, the Māori people are, and the word Māori means I am here. If you come for friendship, I am here. If you come for war, I am here. They're the first invaded, the last liberated anytime there's been a major war. When Idi Amin retreated, he retreated through the Māori territory. He crossed the Nile River there at Laropi, and he gave his army orders to kill anything that drew breath. And that means he killed animals, elephants, he killed everything. And there was a section of road there that had skulls on either side of it. That's just, so it's a very vicious, harsh area. Even today, there have been raids back and forth from the Sudanese raiding, Coney raids. So it is the most remote. As a matter of fact, my compound is less than 3 kilometers from the South Sudan border.
Wow.
So,
and we know the stories coming out of Sudan, even since the, for Darfur and all of the other situations, since they've tried to create a new, kind of separate the two, have the southern liberated,
yes.
state of Sudan. My goodness. So, I mean, you didn't go there thinking you were going to start a mission, did you?
No, I didn't go there thinking that at all. And so we started helping the hospital, and we put the word out that if you can get your kids to the hospital, medicine's free. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't afford medicine." Well, let me tell you one story. I was standing in the hallway of the hospital, and this man and woman come running in holding a 9-year-old girl, and they said she was bitten by a cobra. Can you help? Can you help? And the doctor said, "Oh, we don't have any medicine." So I turned to Vusata, who works for me, and I said, "Vu, there's a pharmacy in town run by some Indians. Go and see if it's available. If it is, buy it." So he jumped in the car and went down there, came back, and they only sold it 8 doses per box. And so they took one out, gave it to the little girl, and she was sick for a few hours, but she got better. And the parents came to me the next day and they said, "We are so sorry. We have no money. We can't pay for this." And the whole box of 8 cost $12. So to save her life was $1.25.
Oh my! And they didn't have.
And they didn't have $1.25.
They didn't have it.
And they didn't have it.
Wow.
So what is so common under socialist type of medicine like that is if the hospital doesn't have it, if you go out and buy it and bring it back to the hospital, they will administer it for you.
Yes, exactly. It works that way in so many countries. I was talking to some people in Peru recently, and the same hospital standards are there. If you're sick, you go to the hospital. If you need bandages, if you need syringes or certain type of medication, your family member has to go and buy it and bring it from the pharmacy to you. Then they'll administer and take care of you. And it's so different. Socialized medicine is so different.
We have that the hospital 1 year saw 465,000 patients with one doctor.
Oh, that is crazy.
We have 43 health centers around the Moyo district with no doctor, just nurses.
But now you started a hospital, right? Or a clinic?
Well, what we do is we help supply all 43 health centers. We did help start a health center in a place called Abeso. And up on Abeso, it's a mountain plateau. It's, I think, at 4,300 feet above sea level. And there are 20,000, 22,000 people who live up there. They have no water and they had no medical clinic. So it's about 28 miles to the hospital. So a pregnant woman, if she felt she were going into labor, to get to the hospital, she would have to walk down the mountain 28 miles. And they said, can you do something? And they have two forms of government there. They have the local government and they have the national government or federal government. And they also have the chief. So they actually have three forms. So I decided to get all three of them together on top of Abeso. And I got them all together and I said, they need a clinic up here. And they go, oh, yeah, they do. I said, I looked at the chief who owns the land. I said, will you give land for there to be a clinic built? And he goes, yes. I said, okay, what land will you give? Now, the Mahdi people are very honorable. So once he says it, he can't go back on his word. So he gave the land. So I turned to the federal government and I said, will you promise to build a building here? And the resident district commissioner, who's appointed by the president, said, yes, the federal government will build a building. So then I turned to the local government and I said, will you supply it with beds and our personnel? And they said, we don't have supplies, but we will put personnel here. I said, okay, tell you what I'll do. If you give the land and you build the building and you will give the personnel, I'll supply the beds, the chairs, the desk, and medicine.
And I mean, and you're not doing that with thinking that I have this bank account with X amount of dollars in it.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, when I wanted to start work over there, I was told that I was too old. I was already 50 years old, and you're too old to be a missionary. And I said, well, God's laid on my heart that these people need help. So they said, well, we're sorry. So we just started United Christian Expeditions and filed the paperwork to get our 501c3 tax exempt. Then we went to Africa and filed the paperwork to become a registered non-government organization. That's what an NGO is.
NGO, right.
And so we started. And just the money that was given in Penny's memory, some churches along the way have helped. Some individuals have helped. And we just have since 2012, we've had United Christian Expeditions. We now have, and here, you ready for the grocery list? We now help support the hospital, 43 health centers. We have 6 schools. We have 2 vocational schools, a Bible Institute, a model farm, 19 churches, 4 works among the South Sudanese refugees, and a partridge in a pear tree.
Floyd, as you share the story, I just can't help but think, well, a couple of things. I thought about what Jesus said, oh, you have little faith. When it comes to doing the kingdom work, sometimes our faith is so small. Although it doesn't take much faith, it just has to be concentrated in the right, direction, toward what God's calling you, which I know you've experienced that. But I was thinking about a story. I interviewed, he's now the Archbishop of Rwanda, Laurent Imbanda. I'm not probably saying his last name correctly, but Laurent used to be with Compassion International here in the States, in Colorado. He grew up, he was a child during the genocide in Rwanda. He was 4 years old living in a refugee camp. And so his parents, immigrated here to the United States. He grew up, went to college, university, living in Colorado Springs, very nice job as one of the vice presidents of Compassion International. And he decided to take his college kids back to Rwanda, kind of like you took your kids to kind of look at the work and show them where he grew up. And they went back, and his son said, well, they saw all they saw the same things you saw in Rwanda after all the genocide. And his son said, Dad, what are we going to do about this? His daughter said, Dad, we got to do something, And so he went back to the States, resigned his job, and they started some work. It's a long story, thrilling story. but went back into Rwanda doing some ministry, not related to Compassion, because Compassion didn't have a work there at the time. And the former Archbishop was mentoring him to take over, and now he's the Archbishop of Rwanda.
Wonderful.
Yeah, but it was through his children though that
Mhm.
he had the vision. We can't underestimate to the youth. Some of the greatest, how they have vision for that. We've got to nurture that, and the fact that you were willing to take your kids back and show them a place that was dear to yours and Penny's heart in
Mhm.
ministry, that's powerful.
And my children have been back several times since then, since that first initial trip. And one of the things, and just how God opens doors, like the vocational schools. They came to me one day. I was sitting up on my veranda, and they said, "Oh, but doctor, we have many people who are too old to start in your schools. Because I started nursery schools, started them young, and we just add a grade each year. And many of their husbands have died either in the war or by AIDS, or so we have a lot of women here who don't know English very well and they have no skill. Can you do something?" And we prayed about it and said, "Yeah, we'll sure." So we started a vocational school for hotel and restaurant services, teaching them English and how to cook more internationally, so that they can do omelets and spaghetti and chili and lasagna.
But is tourism a big
Well,
commerce there?
there is in Uganda, because the Queen Elizabeth Park, and we have several other royal parks there in Uganda: Murchison Falls, Queen Elizabeth, Elgon. So if they can speak English, they can go and get a job anywhere, in any restaurant. They can go to the big city of Kampala or Entebbe, or any places like that. So, and people say, "Really, you went over there to start a cooking school?" No.
No.
And it's sad,
Yeah.
but one of the most requested things by mission teams is my chicken and dumpling recipe. How sad is that? Out of all the wonderful cooks here in America, they're learning my recipe for chicken and dumplings.
Yeah.
It's sad. But a lot of mission organizations told me, "Well, you can't do that." I said, "Can't do what?" "Well, you're doing too many things. You need to focus on one thing and one thing only." And I said, "You know what? I praise God that Jesus didn't focus on just one thing."
Yeah.
I mean, he could have said, I'm going to die on the cross for you. I'm not really about healing. I'm not really about teaching. I'm not really about, ministering to your physical needs like food and raising the dead. I'm just here to die on the cross for you. I'm so glad Jesus didn't do that. So it's kind of hard for me to look in their face and say, "I'm sorry, we can't help you."
Floyd, this is an incredible journey and time we're sharing here together. Let's remind our friends listening, if you tuned in kind of late, we're visiting with Dr. Floyd Parris. He's the lead pastor of the Leawood Baptist Church. He's also the president of this ministry that we're so excited to talk about. And I love the name too. And I'm sorry because I'm scrambling over my papers here, but United Christian Expeditions. How'd you come up with that name? I love that name.
Well, there's an orphanage there that is run by the Catholic Church. And I told people, listen, I don't care. Okay. If you're holding up the cause of Jesus Christ, let's work together.
Let's do it.
And that's what we do. And I will say this, 100% of the money given to UCE goes to Africa. I don't receive a salary. There's no American that receives a salary. I have to pay my own airline ticket over there. Okay. And that's just how we do it, because it's all about them. It's not about us.
One of the things, and I had, of course, this interview went to a whole different direction than I had anticipated. One that I think is God directed and led us in the conversation. But I'll tell you what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to, I think, do another program because there's so much to talk about. So we're going to, at this point, say goodbye. Before we do, we want to give our friends an opportunity to connect with you either through social media, your website. If they want to get on a newsletter, what should they do?
You can go to ucemission.com That's our website. You can look at us, United Christian Expeditions, on Facebook, and you can call me or at Leewood Baptist Church. You can reach out any way you want to reach out.
All right.
So,
Well, Floyd, this has been great. Thank you again, my dear brother, for what you're doing for Christ's kingdom through the work at United Christians Expedition and the work that's taking place there in Africa. We've got more to share. So we're going to have to pick it back up next time, friends. I do appreciate you joining me and Dr. Floyd Parris on this edition of Mid-South Viewpoint. We will return, so be sure and stay tuned for a part 2. I'm Byron Tyler, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye. Well, friends on YouTube, this has been incredible, a great journey today on this part 1 of this interview. As you heard, we're going to have to continue a second part because of so much we should kind of want to get into in our conversation about the work of United Christian Expeditions. Thank you for praying. Thank you for helping support. Go to the website, learn more information. We will say goodbye. Floyd, you want to say anything as we wrap up with our YouTube watchers?
Hey, thank you for listening, and pray for missions, and know you can do something.
Okay.
Just ask the Lord.
That's right. Okay. Well, we're going to say goodbye, and we'll pick it up on our second half. Thanks for watching.